Coming up next.
There was a one time I had a gun in my closet and there was a belt and I'm like, I could hang myself easily here. I can, there was so many ways I'm like, I could just end my life and nobody would know and it would be fun. I can move on.
So
And
you were
then,
really serious. You had a
oh
plan.
yeah, there was so many times where I was just done and I was like, it was a sickness that I had and it wasn't that I formed it. It was just the way that people treated you, right?
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction, your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gioia. I am here with Avonley Lightstone. She is the author of Strength of Scars, A Journey of Resilience. So you're going to want to stick around. There's some hard pieces here, but there's great joy, great faith, lots of resilience. And you need to stick around and hear this story. So, Avonley, bring us into your presence and the presence and identity that God has given you.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's a pleasure being on your podcast. My name is Avonley Lightstone. I am the author of Strength of Scars. A little bit about my story. At the age of 3, I tried to save my mother from a house fire, and my dad was drunk and passed out, unresponsive. And so the best thing I could do, hearing my mom cry, which, that's as a child, you rarely hear that, something was wrong. So I just did what I felt like was the best thing to do as a child, was to hug her. Because when we're young, we get hurt, like motherly instinct, fatherly instinct is to nurture your child, right? To make them feel better. And that's kind of like what I did. I went and hugged her, hugged her really tight. And she was pushing me away, trying to get me to not get caught up in the fire. I had no idea exactly what was going on. I just knew that she was hurt. And pretty soon I felt the rush of the flames on me. And you would think that when you endure such pain that you would let go and respond to where the pain is coming from. But I didn't. I just hugged her tighter because I saw that she wasn't reacting. She wasn't pushing away from the pain that she was enduring. So I kind of mimicked the same patterns as her. Instead, I just hugged her tightly, even though she was like pushing me away. So I started screaming really loud, and that it was what woke my dad up from his drunkenness. And
Mhm.
later, after that, my mom and I was transported to the hospital. And that's where, at the time in India, we lived in a poor country, in a poor part of the city. And we didn't really have, we weren't rich. So we didn't have the advanced technology that we do now. So we didn't really have like the many numbing pain medication to numb like the pain of what I went through. But we had to get like the debris off of my skin that the clothes was seared onto. And
Oh,
so I remember being placed in this big, huge bathtub and seeing like the cockroaches, and I was just feeling so wheezy because I was like there was a mix of emotion going on, like what just happened to me, to being sick, feeling hurt, having the pain, and being in a place where I was not comfortable. it
mhm.
it kind of like, the best way to describe it was, it was felt like I was in a dungeon. And it
Mhm.
was dark, and it was just really hard. And I remember just like my bowels were just all over the place because I was just kind of like pretty much sick to my stomach, emotionally and physically. But they put me in this gigantic bathtub and just scrubbed me clean. Um,
Oh,
taking the scraper, the rag, just they had to like scrape that stuff off of me. And I didn't have any pain, and feeling like, so when you get burned, like it's that instant, like when the iron comes off of you, you feel the oxygen coming through your skin. It just like burns, right? It's like worse when the oxygen comes through. That's, you just imagine that, but like all over. And it was
oh,
just so painful. And I could just feel just the air coming through, and where you're like, I guess like we take like the smallest things for granted, like our skin, and how important our skin is, and that it's actually like a living organism, as
mhm.
senses and stuff. And yeah, it was just a reminder that, oh my gosh, like our physical body on the surface has pain and it has feeling. And here I am as a 3-year old trying to feeling that pain, not having any sort of like numbing agent to numb it, and having to endure that. And that was worse than the fire itself. I would,
So the healing was worse than this extremely traumatic event for.
mhm. Yeah, I remember thinking, I wish I was in the fire still and getting burned alive then. Because
Oh,
at a point when you're getting burned, like I think it's maybe what God provides for someone that's enduring suffering, or animals that enduring like suffering from like burn. There is a point where your body just numbs, and you could just deal with the pain. You just don't feel it anymore, right? Just like when we get um in the cold, we get like that what is it? Numbing from the cold, and we get frostbite, and we just don't feel it anymore. You get hit that point where God like kind of protects and just takes that pain in some ways and lets it just eat through, right? And that's the feeling I went through when I was in the fire is, okay, I would rather go through the fire because there was a point where I I felt the numb. I didn't feel it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It, and so then after that, I was placed on a cot to air dry. Um, like I felt like jerky, like curing on a cot.
Right. Because they
And
didn't want to touch you anymore, right?
yeah,
So,
so like as you can see, my face, I've been really blessed not having my face burnt and my like the front side, my belly and my chest not burnt. My legs was burnt, my back was burnt, and like my back of my arms were burnt. And so the best thing that they could do was have me lay flat on the cot and
oh my
just,
God, face down.
yeah, face down. And so just air dry. And my mom, she was wheeled next to me, and she was completely covered in scars and burns, like
Mm-hmm.
from the face into the bottom of her feet. Like she was completely like gone, and she couldn't talk. She was. I knew that was her because of what had happened, but she was completely different looking. Like as as a 3-year-old, I saw before the accident, I just saw my beautiful mom,
Mm-hmm.
and now she looked like completely different, like almost like a monster. But
Mm-hmm.
in some ways, I already knew that was her, and I loved her,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just really happy for having her presence there because
Mm-hmm.
it kind of helped me. But she didn't end up surviving. She ended up dying after 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
and in those 3 days, that third day was really hard because I was left alone. My dad, he stopped showing up. He didn't cut like so. My parents in India, they had 9 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Not no, not 9 siblings, 9 children. So I had 9 siblings, and so we had a really big family, and they all kind of stopped showing up. And at that time, I needed to be nurtured. I needed to be loved and cared for, especially with my mom being gone. I really needed that. But my dad, I believe he was guilty of what had happened. He wasn't there to respond in an appropriate way when I was hurting. And he just stopped showing up. And so that was really hard. That was the time when I realized that I think things were just falling apart and I had to like suffer on my own, trying to make sense of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And in the hospital as I was healing and recovering all alone.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered like what did I do? Why?
Yes, it's my fault. It's always the child goes.
Yeah.
Did you
As
have any sense or presence of God, or was this long before you understood?
So I grew up, like my family were Catholics in India.
Mhm.
So we were really strong in worshiping Mother Mary. And
Mhm.
so in some ways I had that attachment knowing like that that religion really was instilled in me. But
Mhm.
I don't think was praying. I
Mhm.
didn't know how to pray. I was just in the middle of like trying to figure out what was going on. And
Mhm.
then it was once I recovered, I was released from the hospital and I was taken home. And my dad, he took our family to the church that we usually go to. And we paid respect to my mom. And I remember having to still not wear clothes because I was still healing.
Mhm.
And I was oozing, and so I had to be very careful about putting clothes on. And so I just was wearing blue underwear. I felt like Mowgli off of
Mhm.
the Jungle Book, wearing blue underwear, going to church in my underwear, bowing down to Mother Mary's statue and just praying and I guess just sending my condolences to my mom, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and then it was kind of like right after then, my dad took me to the orphanage. So it was
What happened to the other 8? Where were the other 8?
so the other 8 was still left at the house, and I'll get there. So
Okay.
my dad takes me to the orphanage, and again, like I said, I think it has to do with guilt
Mm-hmm.
of what had happened. It's it's the most bizarre way of like working through your pain, is trying to remove yourself from it and remove whatever was part of it. And that's just not how you handle things. But with my dad, that's how he did. That's how he coped. That's how he handled it. I get rid of things, something that affected me, because I cannot go through the rest of my life seeing this person, seeing what she went through, and feeling like I caused it. When really, he really did. He could have been there to help us, and he probably could have saved my mom. But so, like, it was really hard to be placed in the orphanage and feeling abandoned again by my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like, what again? Like, what did I do? What was wrong with me? And like as a 3-year-old, most 3-year-olds don't question those things. Like you don't like, and I came from, I didn't know like that feeling, because my mom was so good to me. She was good to all the kids. She raised us really well. She was always providing love in some sort of another. And she was just a, like, we were poor, but she managed, and there was love in the home, and that's all I knew. And so when I felt abandoned, I'm like, wait, what's going on? This is all new. But so he put me up for an orphanage for a few weeks before he decided to put my other 3 siblings that were around my age up for adoption as well. And then the rest ended up staying because they were just older and they were able to help with the household and bring income in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what had happened. Um, so then I'll fast forward to it. I end up getting adopted into a family that was where my mom was abusive as well. She was emotionally, physically, um, and spiritually abusive. And I was very fortunate enough to be adopted with my 2 other siblings. My other sister, so there was 4 of us that he put up for adoption. The youngest one, so I wasn't youngest. There was another child that was a year younger than I was,
Mm-hmm.
and that little sister was adopted into a family, I believe, in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I was fortunate enough to even have my 2 siblings be adopted into the same family. So I get adopted into this family here in Utah. We were LDS,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember when I first saw my mom, I accepted her, because in the orphanage they groom you to get ready for your family in India. So they tell you all the good things. They get you prepped up. You have to learn English. You have to learn like certain mannerisms that are in America, so that when we come here, we'll be more accustomed to
Mm-hmm.
America than in India. So we gave up all of our like a lot of things that we grew up that's came natural to us in India, and just completely like turned 360 and focused on, okay, we have to talk this way, we have to write this way, so many different ways that we were groomed to get ready. So we were already okay with that. So I remember already it being okay and accepting my mom as my mother. So when I saw her, I'm like, hey, this is my new family. I accepted the fact. It's kind of hard and it's kind of bizarre that I clicked that fast with them. And it's probably because of the way my dad treated me, my biological dad. And I was just fine with that. I said, okay, you know what? I already know I'm not going to go have my family in India, but here's an opportunity to have a new family. I accepted them. And so it was it was good I felt like the first few months getting adopted. My adopted parents adopted 14 kids.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
it was a lot. It was a lot. Three boys were already adopted and out of the house graduated by the time the rest of the nine became adopted.
Mhm.
Um, and as as I've written this book, you could see the same patterns that my older brothers endured that was happening with the nine children that were adopted and was raised in this family. The narcissist of my mom and how there's always a system in the family. There has to be a golden child. There has to be a scapegoat. And then there's the other, I call them the filler children that are just trying to seek any validation or any sort of love and self-worth. And if they could be on the good side, then that's good on them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they'll be shunned as well. And they already seen how I was treated, and some of my other siblings that were treated horribly. They already seen that. And so it was always it was always fighting for our love, like a love for my mom. Like,
Mhm.
hey, we need to get an approval. It's silly. You shouldn't feel like you
Mhm.
have to be approved of love. Like
It's a
that's like,
performance. If you perform well, you get love.
hmm
But then at some point, you're doing everything you know to perform, and you're still not getting the love because the rules have changed without you knowing.
yeah, exactly. And so that was really hard to see that I was kind of thrown in there. And I would say after like 6 months of being there, my oldest sister, my oldest biological sister, she she was having it really rough. Like she was missing the family in India, and she didn't like have that harsh, like, I guess, separation like I did, where I had time to heal
Right?
at the hospital, like
Mhm.
alone. She didn't have that. She was just like thrown into the orphanage, she's like, hey, you had your family, but like, can you imagine like what those siblings have felt like? What happened to me? Like, why am I taken away from my family? So like she did not accept my mom. She was
Mhm.
like, you're not my mom. I miss my mom in India. And I think a lot of that triggered my adopted mom. And she
Mhm.
started getting really aggressive
Mhm.
in the way she would respond to my sister. And though I was really good. I never like talked back at her. I was really respectful. I was reserved. I was super shy. So I just
Mhm.
kept to myself and I did whatever she wanted me to do.
Mhm.
And so she knew that. And so she used that against me. So when my sister reacted um, in a negative way that she couldn't really help her, she threw that at me. And I would end up getting punished from her behavior.
Mhm.
So my mom would I had a really difficult time learning
Mhm.
when I went to school. So she would put me down in the basement and give me lessons to do after I went to school. And I couldn't go out and play. I just had to go down in the basement and catch up on lessons because I was falling behind in grade school. And it was just because I had dyslexia and I still had to figure out how to go from the language that I was speaking in India, because I came with like 12 different dialects,
Mhm.
and also trying to grasp English at the same time. So there was just a lot of like confusion. She wasn't patient with me. She did it like she didn't. I'm a visual learner. Like if
Mhm.
you teach me and show me how it's done, then I can usually pick things up pretty quickly. But that wasn't the case with her. She just kind of like let me just do this, and then I would get punished when I couldn't figure it out, and I would just cry and cry and cry. So a lot of things with her started happening where she just kind of pushed me aside and put me in positions where I would get in trouble. I'd have to haul rocks as a punishment, fill a truckload of rocks from the field, haul a bunch of like wood. And it's just like a lot of things like that. And I had a sister that was exactly the same age as I was, and she just happened to be the golden child. And
Mm,
so, like, it was really rough and tough because I was always watched on.
mhm.
Like, if I did anything wrong, if I was happy, the sister would tell my mom and they would just talk. And yeah, pretty soon I was either punished for just having a good time or if I did something that I wasn't supposed to. So I was always having an eyes on me because she was in the same grade as me and I
Right.
couldn't just be myself. So there was a lot of times, even when I was younger, I was thinking of thoughts of committing suicide because I just didn't feel like I was wanted
Right.
and I couldn't understand like why I was in this position. Like I would ask God all the time, like, why did you take my mom? Why didn't you take me? Like at least my mom would be useful. She has um, many kids that she needs to help raise, and that's going to be a struggle for my dad. Now it's weighs heavy on my dad. And
Right.
so like it would have been just easier. Like at 3 year old, I'm just 3 years old. Like just toss me away. That I would have been better than being put into this family. I just didn't feel comfortable. Like though my adopted dad was really good. He was just a really good person, and I think that was a saving grace for me. And I was a I was able to work in the field. I actually wanted to like ride horses, help him out on the ranch. So I built a really sort of strong relationship with him. Actually, all my biological siblings, we all just gravitated towards him, and we loved just waking up super early, leaving the house. Well, it just got to the point where I would start asking God, and the way I would ask God was I would just I knew from the LDS church, and this is where I'm no longer LDS. I've left the church since I like graduated from high school, pretty much. There was just something about that church that never felt right to me. But one of the things I just absolutely loved is knowing that God exists. So you
Yeah.
could pray. So
Yeah.
like even if you feel lost in a religion and you don't quite understand, talk about that. Talk that with God because there probably is a reason why you feel that way. And I felt that way as a young child. I've just felt like there was something different about this church and it didn't resonate well with me. And I think it was also the way my mom was, is the church was really focused on family will be for together forever,
Mm,
right? And I love the idea, the concept that, hey, there's something more to this than the life that we're living, that we'll be able to go with God at the end of our life and live with Him happy with our family if we live righteously. And so I actually like held on to that idea and the concept because it felt so good. But
mhm.
I was not really like it wasn't resonating in some ways with me because I was seeing, I was judging my mom and seeing how could you go to church how could you how could you raise the kids and act like you're a really good person and everybody in our town just thinks you're just the greatest, but you're doing some pretty like abusive stuff in your own family. Like, how can you think that's okay? And so, like those things I was questioning. Like, I know, like with what I'm learning in church, that God is loved, God is great, He cares about you. Um, but if that's the case, and you learned that religion, wouldn't you want to embody that same mentality of God? Like,
So
and that's
even
what.
as a little person, you saw the divergence. You saw the nature of God was this, but the nature of human can be this.
Mhm.
How did
Yeah,
you break free from the victim mindset? How did you've been through a lot of trauma and tragedy. How did you
yeah.
get into your own?
So I think like having that concept of having God exist, I was able to go out in the field and talk, preach to the cows. And I just knew, okay, just follow these commandments because that's the commandments and the law that God gave us. And that's what I try to instill in my own self, even though my mom wasn't acting that way. I just knew that that's how I felt good about myself. And to be a good person is by following his commandments, and God would be pleased with you. And so that's what I just focused on, and I felt really good. And I endured a lot of pain throughout that time. And I look back and I say, like, you know what? God was there with me even during those hard times. And people might get really upset and say things like, why is he constantly telling you, giving you all these trials and pushing you down on the ground? It's like, well, it just got to that point when, because I wrote 3 books. So my
Mm-hmm.
second book is more about like my marriage and how my husband's family was also narcissistic and
Mm-hmm.
in their own ways too, and how he had a hard time just I guess just playing with like they were playing with his emotion and he just didn't have his identity. And so as we got together, we realized like we were broken. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of healing that we need to do. And because I think I don't mean to like say this, but like a lot of religion makes what people act a certain way and hide their true self. And and in our marriage, we were like completely open, but his our families were like acting as if like we were the problem. And so
Mm-hmm.
they would place a problem on us because they couldn't, they had this imperfect image that they had to um, represent.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we were already scarred and hurt, they just threw their garbage on us. So at that time in our early marriage, we said we got to separate from our families for 2 years, really work on ourselves, heal ourselves. And that's when we started learning about self-help, finding good books, and really like connecting more with God, like on in a separate level. Like whereas before we just had God alongside me, but this
Right.
time it was like, okay, we're taking a step away from family and focusing exactly directly on what God wants from us and what we could do to heal. And so
So
during
how did you focus on what God wanted from you? Did you go to scripture to find that? Did you sit in meditation or prayer? What, you've got this mixed upbringing. You've got some Catholicism and LDS in there and all that.
Mhm.
How did you, what did you do to seek God clearly? What got brought to you?
This is kind of like crazy, but I think God takes us in different passages in life when we might not be aware of like what it is. So I was completely confused in like the religion, but I really just wanted to connect with God on a personal level, and it was just me him, right? And I didn't want to be a part of any denominational churches. But I started reading certain books that I look back at it, they were very new agey,
Mm-hmm.
but they were actually helpful at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Until like I think it was just more of like exercising my mind, opening my mind for opportunities and way God could come into my life. And in those moments, I was actually opening up like spiritual portals that I didn't even know. And
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to hear like spirits, like I would get paralyzed at nighttime, and the spirits would take over me, and I would just remember the one thing that always struck with me is like, hey, you can always call upon Jesus's name. And every
Mm-hmm.
single time I would yell, and like my husband could never hear me because I was in a paralyzed state. And I thought I was like yelling really loud, but I wasn't. But yeah, in my mind, I would yell, Jesus Christ, help save me. And he would
Yeah.
come and he would just
Yeah.
come and he would take these dark spirits above me. And I think I had to also go through that because then I reached a point where I realized, no, we got to be very careful what we let in our life. We can't we can't just take in any kind of self-help book and think it's actually going to help us. We got
Mm-hmm.
to know like the origins behind some of these practices. And I grew up in a really small town, so I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like our school or anything. We like the internet was just barely getting noticed. So I didn't know how to go about like recognizing and like making one mind uh like feel safe and hey, be cautious about like what you're getting into. So yeah, I think I had to go through a lot of like this path of this new agey for me to really truly understand like, hey, if I'm going to help people later on with self guidance and healing, I really need to also teach the practices of what you're reading and what you're actually going in and helping you in with.
What
Like
you're
it could,
taking in. And it sounds
mhm.
like Jesus was guiding you the whole time.
And but yet he was still protecting me. He was allowing me to face the demonic means of what was going through in my life, but he was like holding me, letting me know, like, here, go through this. This is good material. Like, you need to know, like, the bad thing that's happening in this world and how it could be deceiving as good. And
Right.
so I really had to like go through that. I never like in the LDS we don't really read the Bible. And so I didn't really read the Bible. And so when I was buried, I was starting to read the Bible, but I was more leaning more towards like the guidance of other people that's got through trauma and how they could recover. And I wasn't really focusing on God's words. And yet I was still praying to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I believed in him and I believed this is the direction he was going. But eventually I was able to recognize the patterns of what was happening in the self-destruction, like even with yoga, like how having certain like I get posture in yoga is actually bringing in demonic beings. And there's so many like people that talks about that, and that's something that people could research on. But yeah, I started realizing like when we tap into things that's supposed to be self-help book and it's actually origins of different um, practices, we're actually bringing in demonic forces within us, and we have to be very careful in what we bring into our bodies because a lot of times it could over possess us and we might end up falling a different direction and doing things that we never thought was in our nature and when we're only trying to seek help for our own individual self. So yeah, it's really important that we try to do our best to discover the goodness of what we're taking in, what we're feeding our soul. And then always question God. Like he tells us, question anything. Come to me. If you're angry and you're upset, like something happened to you, come to me, challenge me. He's asking us to challenge him. And so, yeah, there was times where I was challenging him, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would you put me in this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was just a waste of time. But actually, I look back and say, you know what? It was actually important that I went through this because I could help people be aware so then they don't step into the same loop that I went through. And that eventually what really got me into it was opening my Bible and
Mm-hmm.
reading the book of Psalms because it teaches you how to pray, and book of Proverbs, it teaches you how to live.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read the next few testaments uh of the Bible, like and it teaches you just like the prophecy and what is to come, and how we're supposed to be the bride getting ready for our bridegroom,
Yeah.
and how to keep our oils constantly filled. And in order to do that, we have to go to the Bible. And if we don't know it, the Bible teaches us how to do that. And so I'm going through a lot of traumatic pain, and I'm healing as I'm reading the Bible, and I'm reading, okay, the book of Solomon. Solomon's really teaching us how to pray, and I can use this pray as if it's in my own life. And
Mm-hmm.
God hears us and he feels for us. And oh my gosh, the healing is more than you can imagine. And it's in God's way. It's not your way of how you want to control it. It's the way God wants you to shine, and how he can utilize you, because he will utilize you later. And it's just kind of been really amazing to see the journey of how um, the trauma what of my childhood ended up becoming a forgiveness pattern in my second book of what truly forgiveness was. It wasn't about how It's not about like going to that person saying, I'm really sorry, will you forgive me? I'm really sorry that those things happened to you. I forgive you, but would you forgive me? And that was like the mindset that I kind of had. And maybe it was because it was kind of drilled in the church, like you got to forgive, you got to forgive. But really, forgiveness truly is knowing where you stand. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know what was wrong. So I'll use my mom as an example. I knew what she did was wrong. And as an adult, like, and as a mother, I knew that that is not how you raise or treat your kids. I just knew it. And it was not okay. But I am not going to let her suppress me anymore. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, I'm going to be a voice if it's for my family, or like at the time, I felt like, "Hey, if we're going to be that happy eternal family, then we need to act like it." And so I did go to my mom a few times telling her my concern, like, hey, the direction we're going, the family's gonna fall apart. It's gonna be divided. And I'm already seeing that. I'm willing to forgive and let drop everything. Could we start from scratch and move forward? And I proposed this to her a few times. And just like a narcissist, they kind of throw it away, or nod, 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 but then doesn't happen, and they push you even further away because they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have to face the reality that they were the problem and have to fix themselves. So that was really like a burden for me. I was like, God, like, again, why am I here? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
am I supposed to do? I want to help my family and return to you. And I want a good family where we can all just like hang out and just talk and have a good conversation. But I'm being pushed away even more. And
How are
I'm,
you reconciling that now? How are you reconciling that at least at presently is not happening?
well, I think at that point was when, because I was still like going through suicidal thoughts, like even to my marriage, because it was really hard and I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And there was a one time I had a gun in my closet and there was a belt and I'm like, I could hang myself easily here. I can, there was so many ways I'm like, I could just end my life and nobody would know and it would be fun. I could move on.
So
And
you were
then,
really serious. You had a
oh
plan.
yeah, there was so many times where I was just done and I was like, it was a sickness that I had and it wasn't that I formed it. It was just the way that people treated you, right? And you just don't feel like you're worth anything. And you feel like, oh, it's better that, like, what's the point of me being in your life if I'm just a misery to you? Like, let's cut me off and then you could just continue to have a good life. That's what my thought process was. And so, yeah, I was wrestling with the idea of at this time, like, God, I don't know what forgiveness is. Why am I constantly wanting to take my life? What is the point of me being here? Like, I want to be a good mom. I want to be able to help people, but I got to get rid of this. I'm like my mind is constantly focused on this and I can't do this anymore. Like, is there a release? And God, I had this strong feeling where God said, "You did all you could. Now give it to me." So he tells us to work through our problems. So I did. I did talk with my mom, try to make things right, try to work with my family. He's like, when you don't have anything left and you're wanting you wanting that mom where you could talk to her and tell her like the exciting news or sad news, you want that. Now, now what I want is turn that to me and I will take it. So whatever exciting thing that's happening in your life, I'm the parent. Come to me and share it with me.
Beautiful. Did
And
you start
so
doing that?
I did. I did. I at that point, I was cured of feeling like I'm gonna take my life. Like I never had that moment ever again. And I just focused on like what God wanted. He's like, now work for me. Work for me. I will take care of you. And I will take care of your family. And so I literally just said, okay, God, here, take my family. I'm just gonna focus on my family and do what I could do was best for you. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. And that is what truly a true forgiveness is. It's between you and God. He puts you in a position where you kind of have to work on like trying to mend things in a way that is going to be positive and helpful, which I did with my family. But if it doesn't end up working out and they're not willing, because it gives them a chance to like reflect on themselves
Right.
and like push towards like, oh yeah, let's work on this as a family. Let's move forward. It gives them a chance. So like working with them is not a bad thing. That's actually part of like the forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But you once you see no result and it keeps happening, you end up just saying, God, I give this to you. That I did all that I could. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what God wants you to do. He wants you to try to
Yeah.
make it as best as you can, recovering, working through your problem, because he tells us like to work through our problems, like
Yes.
make things right. And if we don't do that, then it's kind of on us. But at this point, like it's not on me anymore. I gave it up to God. God will handle it with them. And so, yeah, that's kind of where the forgiveness came into place. And God's literally just took away my feelings of wanting to commit suicide, taking my own life, feeling like I'm not needed here. He took that away and he showed me my purpose of you're going to be helping a lot of people. And so
Avonlea,
yeah.
as we're winding down, tell us more about your books, where we can find you, what you are doing now to help people.
So you can find my book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, online. Or you can, if you want to know a little tidbit about my book before you purchase it, you could go to my website, avonleylightstone.com, and you can punch in your email and I'll send over a free copy of my first chapter of my book. And that first chapter is so tender and so sad, and it's definitely worth the read. But yeah, so now I'm on this journey to bring healing into people's life and also to bring God back into people's life because people like me that's gone through trauma, a lot of times end up pushing God away because they think it's God's fault and they start assuming like God doesn't exist. But with my testimony and my stories, I can go back. I've written 3 books now, and each book has its own level of uniqueness. Like the first book was more geared towards my childhood and how timid and naive and just like sensitive a child is, to
Mhm.
like my second book where it becomes about like forgiveness and understanding, standing tall, recognizing who your self-worth is. And then the third book is quite interesting. God really placed me in a position where um, I was dealing with spiritual warfare. It
Mm.
was the demonic beings, and it was completely different. And I think I had to go through all of these things because there's so many people in different life and in our lives that have different journeys. Like it could be a spiritual warfare of abuse that they're going through. It could be like a physical, or it could be a little bit of everything that I went through. But it's just really beautiful because now I can kind of help people to try to let them recognize how God really moved me in my life and how he was a big part. He was at many times I thought he was like universal way, but he really was just at my fingertips, just guiding me. Is
Absolutely.
so that's where I'm at. I'm hoping to share and bring healing back into people's life, and hopefully give people a chance to give God a chance back
Yeah.
into their life.
And like you said, he's waiting to take this from us.
Hmm.
Right? He's waiting.
Yeah.
He's holding out his hands. He's saying, I will carry this. Avonlea, thank you so much for your vulnerability. These are some deep stories. I know so many people in the audience will resonate with it. Thank you for your time. And we're going to have everything down below so you can find her. One of her covers has her beautiful daughter on it. You can see all of those things. So thank you again for your time and being here today.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.